A deeply disturbing video surfaced a few days ago where two women were being paraded naked as people around them cheered on, with no one objecting or coming forward to help them. The video was from the recent violence that is going on in the Indian state of Manipur. Manipur has been slowly imploding for the last several weeks now, with no end to the conflict in sight. From people dying on the streets to houses and buildings being vandalized, Manipur is burning one day at a time. No one is safe. Not the common man walking on the street, and not even a politician of the ruling party in the state. Two IRS officers have also been killed in the violence so far, and perhaps the most unfortunate and horrifying visuals that have come out are of the atrocities against women. But what exactly is the conflict about? And who are the different factions that are engaged in this conflict? Before we move on to what the reason for the conflict is, let's understand who are the ones fighting. Manipur is one of the most beautiful states in northeastern India, and it has traditionally been inhabited by local people for several centuries. Two of these communities are the Meiteis and the Kukis. Remember these because they are important. Moving on to the demography of Manipur. Manipur is a hilly area that is surrounded by valleys. 10% of Manipur, which is the central area, is made up of valleys. This is inner Manipur, while the remaining 90% of the state's area is made up of hills that surround the valleys, and this is outer Manipur. Coming back to the two communities, the Meiteis and the Kukis. The Meiteis are a majority, making up 53% of the population and residing in the valley area of inner Manipur. The Kuki communities, on the other hand, are a minority, making up 27% of the population and residing in the larger, hilly area of outer Manipur. There is one more community, the Nagas, who also reside in the hilly areas of outer Manipur. So to sum it up, there are the Meiteis, who are mostly Hindus and Muslims, who are 53% of the population and live in the smaller valley area of inner Manipur. And then there are the Kukis and Nagas, who are mostly Christians, who live in the larger, hilly areas of outer Manipur. The two factions that are currently fighting are the Meiteis versus a united group of Kukis and Nagas. Now let's move on to the reason of the conflict. It all started in February 2023 this year when the Chief Minister of Manipur, Biren Singh, said that he is beginning a scheme to create a protected forest area in the hills. He said that this land was being used by the local people for illegal activities, who were using it to grow drugs and promote terrorism and insurgency. Now, to create this protected area, he had to reclaim land from the local Kuki population in some hilly areas. Now, naturally, this upset the Kukis, who claimed that their houses were demolished and they were misplaced without any notice, without any warning, making them homeless and jobless overnight. In disagreement with the government's move, the Kukis started a peaceful protest in March in the Churachandpur district, a place where the Kuki people were affected by the encroachment removal drive of the government. But the government strongly opposed the protest, saying that the protest itself was unconstitutional and the land never belonged to these people in the first place. This deepened the disagreement between the Kuki tribes and the BJP state government led by CM Biren Singh. Fast forward to 2 months later in April. An open gym was going to be inaugurated by the Chief Minister on 28th April in the Churachandpur district, but a day before the event, a mob vandalized the event area. But the CM continued with the event on the next day, which was a mistake. The people were still quite upset and they tried to barge into the event as it was going on, with several government officials in attendance. It eventually led to a clash between the people and the local police. Now, this was the first part of the conflict. The second part is where the Meiteis, the majority community which occupies the 10% area of valleys of inner Manipur, comes in. In 2012, a petition was filed by these Meiteis in the High Court of Manipur to help them get scheduled tribe status. The Meiteis claim that they want the ST status as their culture and language is under threat, and geographic control is losing because of illegal Kuki migration from neighboring Myanmar and Bangladesh. And this ST status will give them quota in government jobs and colleges as well. But this is only one aspect. You see, while the Kukis and Nagas are scheduled tribes and they can buy land anywhere in Manipur, including the hilly areas, the Meiteis are not allowed to buy land in the hills. The Meiteis think that this is unfair, as they have been confined to the shrinking Imphal Valley, which is only 10% of Manipur's overall land area. Meiteis say that giving them the SG status will also lift this restriction, and buying and selling land in the hills will once again be available to them. Now on the other side, the Kuki and Nagas say that Meiteis already have a majority representation in several constituencies of the government. And if they get the SG status too, they will also get all the government jobs, leaving nothing for the Kukis and Nagas. Moreover, Meiteis already have the OBC status, which makes Kukis question their demand. You already have the OBC status, now why do you want to be SG? Giving them SG status will mean that Meiteis will start entering the hilly areas and start suppressing them in their own homes. So basically, Kukis and Nagas are strictly against the Meiteis getting the ST status. But on 20 April this year, the Manipur High Court responded to the petition filed in 2012 that I just mentioned and recommended the government to grant scheduled tribe status to the Meiteis. So by the time the vandalizing of the event on 28th April happened, the Kukis and Nagas were already angry over not one but two reasons. First was that Kukis were being displaced from the hills under the supposed encroachment removal drive. And second was that they did not like that Meiteis were going to be granted the SG status. Now coming back, the violence on 28th April was seen as a direct attack on the government, and Section 144 was imposed for the next 5 days, prohibiting gathering of 4 or more people in the district of Churachandpur. Once the 5 days had passed, on 3rd May 2023, a tribal solidarity march was organized by the All Tribal Students Union of Manipur, a union that represents the Kukis and the Nagas. And more than 60,000 people were present at this rally. Now there are claims that a rumor started among these people. Some are saying that the rumor was that the Meiteis had burned down a neighboring Kuki village in the hills, while others say that the rumor was that the Meiteis had assaulted a Kuki woman. But the result of the rumor was that this protest of 60,000 people turned violent, and this is said to be the tipping point where the violence actually started. In retaliation of the rumor, the Kukis started burning down Meitei settlements all around them, and this violence started spreading like wildfire. The very next day, the number of protesters burning shops and vehicles on the street increased, and so did the police deployed to control them. Eventually, the police started clashing with the protesters. And fast forward to today, the violence has not really stopped. Police are no longer able to control the violence, and as a result, the Indian Army has been called in to control the situation, which is still not under control. Videos have surfaced where women are literally being paraded naked in public, and there are separate reports of women being raped as well. And forget about the law and order. These incidents make you question even the spirit of human decency among the culprits. So by now, it must be clear to you that both the Meiteis, who occupy the 10% valley area of Inner Manipur, and the Kukis and Naga, who occupy the 90% hilly area of Outer Manipur, are claiming that they are the victims. So who is actually right here? Well, to understand that, we need to dig into the history of Manipur and the Meitei and Kuki communities. If you go by the manuscripts and literature that have survived the ancient and medieval periods, the history of Manipur actually starts with the Meitei people. The Meiteis originally came to the valleys of Manipur from Myanmar centuries ago, and they inhabited the valley and became the rulers of Manipur. Other than the Meiteis, the hilly areas of Manipur also had other tribes, two of which were the Nagas and the Kukis. And although these tribes were located in the hilly areas close to the valleys of Manipur, the culture and the people of these were entirely different. Over the years, the Meitei people used to rule the inner valley with an established monarch or king, while the others continued to be scattered but united tribes in the hilly areas. Now, up until the modern period, the Meiteis and other tribes of Kukis and Nagas had a complicated and oscillating relationship. At some points in time, they both coexisted peacefully, even trading with each other, while at other times they were fighting each other, with the Meiteis trying to expand their control from the valleys to the hills as well. And this was largely how things went until 1789. So 1789 saw the death of King Jai Singh, who was the last authoritative king of Manipur. After his death, his children started fighting each other for the kingdom for the next 23 years. And by 1819, the Manipur kingdom was extremely fragile. And the bordering Burmese army took advantage of the situation and invaded Manipur. During the next 7 years, also called the 7 years of devastation, the Burmese nearly burnt Manipur down to the ground. Now, this was also a time when the British had already started to gain control over India. And Burmese occupation of Myanmar was a direct threat to their supremacy and authority. So in 1824, Raja Gambhir Singh, who was the king of Manipur as it was being oppressed by Burma, asked the British for help. And the request was granted. The British started helping Manipur in expelling Burma in a war that lasted 2 years, the Anglo-Burmese War. And therefore, by 1826, Raja Gambhir Singh had truly liberated Manipur from the genocide of the Burmese. But this had come at a cost. It was now a British protectorate, a puppet of the British rule. And this was where the seeds of discontent were sowed within the people of Manipur. The British continued to control Manipur until independence, either directly or indirectly. And their policies deepened the divide between the different communities within Manipur. For instance, they obviously had no regard for local traditions or communities and classified the areas of Manipur into hills and valleys, creating a strict administrative division on this basis. This practice further solidified and codified the differences between the Meiteis, Kukis and the Nagas. And this was quite similar to the divide and rule policy that they had employed in Bengal as well, partitioning it into East Bengal and West Bengal. To give you another example, the Kukis had traditionally practiced shifting agriculture for centuries, where they use a piece of land, harvest it, and then move on to a new piece of land. The British allotted and specified land to each community, not caring about the fact that this was simply not how the Kukis lived. And these are just two examples of several practices that deepened the divide in Manipur for another century of British rule. Now, you would think that the situation would become better once the British left, right? But sadly, that has not been the case so far. In 1947, after independence, the princely states had three choices: join India, join Pakistan, or remain independent. While the majority of Indian princely states had decided to join India, there were a few exceptions who had wanted to become independent instead. And one such exception was Manipur. King Bodh Chandra Singh, the ruler of the princely state of Manipur at the time of independence, decided that Manipur would be an independent entity. And in 1947, he drafted the constitution for a democratic government with a king as its head, similar to the model that is still being followed in the UK. However, this did not bode well for post-independence India. Remember here that Manipur was a border state and it had direct or indirect contact with Burma, China and even Bangladesh, which was a part of Pakistan back then. Leaving it unchecked could have turned it into a breeding ground for insurgency groups or even worse, annexation by these neighbors, both of which would create problems for India in the future, and they did not want a Kashmir at the eastern border as well. So it is said that in 1949, India forced King Bodh Chandra Singh into signing an agreement that officially declared Manipur to be a part of India. And this upset the people of Manipur collectively, whether it was Meiteis, Kukis or the Nagas. You see, when Manipur became a part of India, it was declared to be a union territory. And the democratically elected government, as per the constitution of Manipur in 1947, was practically bypassed, with the centre now directly controlling Manipur as a union territory. Moreover, at this time, each of the groups had their own demands. So the Kukis wanted Kuki-dominated areas of Manipur and Myanmar to be merged into a Kuki land. Nagas wanted the Naga-dominated areas of Assam, Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh to be merged into Nagalim, and Meiteis obviously wanted complete control of Manipur, claiming to be the true heirs to the Manipur throne. However, with Manipur becoming a union territory, none of these communities were happy. And this was also where the seeds of the present-day conflict were truly sown. The government went on to give the Kukis and the Nagas the status of scheduled tribes, also allowing them to freely own land anywhere in the 90% area of outer Manipur. And this was how they were pacified, at least temporarily. But the Meiteis, on the other hand, felt quite the opposite. Before Manipur was declared a union territory in 1956, Meiteis were a scheduled tribe. But the government snatched this status from them. The government's argument here was that at this time, Meiteis already constituted roughly 60% of Manipur's population, and they were obviously a majority. So it did not make sense to give them the status of an ST, which is a minority. Moreover, since Meiteis had historically ruled just the valleys, they were prohibited from buying land in the 90% hilly areas of Manipur. And the Meiteis have never been happy ever since. So to sum it up, Meiteis feel that they are being treated as outsiders in their own homeland that they have ruled for centuries, not being allowed to buy land in their own state. Moving forward, Manipur was converted from a union territory to a state in 1972, which prompted the formation of a state government with constituencies. But since the Meiteis are a majority, nearly 40 out of the 60 seats in the government were represented by Meitei-dominated areas. Kukis believe that this gives the Meiteis an unfair advantage, and they always have a majority when it comes to political representation and consecutively law formation. This is also why they think that the government's policies are either always in favor of Meiteis or against the Kukis or Nagas. Similar to how Kuki houses were demolished in Churachandpur earlier this year. So Kukis and Nagas also feel that they are being treated as outsiders in the land where they have lived for centuries, with oppression from the Meitei majority government. And this is why the Meiteis, the Kukis and the Nagas are currently fighting a pseudo-civil war amongst themselves. But these conflicts are actually not new. There was a particularly violent period of Naga-Kuki conflict from 1992 to 1997, where more than 230 people were killed and over 1 lakh Kukis were displaced. Yes, Nagas and Kukis, the two tribes that have currently united to fight the Meiteis, have been infighting amongst themselves as well. Then there was the Great June Uprising on June 18, 2001, when a protest by the Meiteis against the Nagas had turned violent, killing many protesters. And then there was another incident of violence in Churachandpur itself in 2015, the exact place where the violence started earlier this year in May, where the tribal communities were protesting against the Meiteis, and the protest had turned violent once again. And this is an indication that the underlying cause of these disputes cannot be resolved easily in a short time. We have to understand that the people of Manipur, whether it is the Meiteis or the Kukis or the Nagas, have been manipulated by external forces with ulterior motives for centuries now. First it was the British, then it was the Indian government itself, and currently by the insurgency groups that are rampant in the state, who claim to help these communities but essentially centralize power in the hands of a few power-hungry people. Coming back to now, immediate action needs to be taken to control the violence and build trust among the people, at least for now. And I hope that the administration is able to crack this problem and establish peace in Manipur once again, giving priority to the safety of women above everything else. I am really eager to hear your solutions to solve this dispute in Manipur, so please do tell me about them in the comments below. If you think this video added value for you, please spare just 1 second to hit the like button below. Your likes and appreciation are the only motivation for me to continue bringing more informative videos out in the open. Subscribe to my channel so you do not miss out on my next videos. Until then, goodbye.